Welcome back to part 2 of this 2-part series. I hope you enjoyed part 1 where I answered the question, what is in my pump bag? That entire video is only supplies. And now in part 2, I am going to answer the rest of your questions, everything from how to make pumping more comfortable, what temperature to store your milk, how to store your milk, what pump I use and why, guest appearance from my cat, and a few more questions. So I really hope that you stick around, you like, subscribe, want more content, give me ideas for content in the comment box. Would love to keep this going and provide as much information to you as I can as a second-time mom, diving right back into my pumping experience. Okay. So I posed the question on Instagram and Facebook, what would you like answered? We already answered question number 1, which was, what supplies do I use? The next question is, how do you make the pumping process comfortable, not painful? Okay, so if you watched part 1, you will know that one of the items in my pump bag is nipple butter. Let's see if I can get to it. Nipple butter is so crucial in the beginning of any breastfeeding journey or pumping journey, whether that's an exclusive pump or a combination. Okay, so the nipple butter that I highly recommend is the Earth Mama nipple butter, and it is incredibly healing. I've used it with both babies now. I highly recommend when you're beginning the pumping process and it's new to you to use it a little bit before and a little bit after. So using it before will help with the gliding, and then after for just that extra healing as you go about the day. The other, and I would say most important aspect to how comfortable your pump is going to be the size of your flange. So this is a hand pump, but it has the same type of flange that you would find on the electric pump. They come in sizes. I use the Spectra S2 pump, and it comes with 2 sizes, 24 millimeter and 28 millimeter. I use a 28 millimeter. However, you might need a 32 millimeter. Well, that's not going to come standard with the pump, but you can order it from Spectra or on third-party sites like Maymom, which is where I get a lot of my replacement parts. The size of the flange is so crucial because if the flange is too tight, too small, it is only going to pull your nipple and it is going to rub around the sides. If your nipple is rubbing anywhere on these edges, ouch, you are not going to be able to have the success if you are cringing and uncomfortable while pumping. So what you want is your nipple to be able to go in and out of the tube without rubbing. That means a little bit of your areola should be entering this part as well. If it's too big, you're not going to get the suction to get a really successful pump. So find your sweet spot, order the size that is perfect for you, and that will definitely contribute to the comfort. And the only other thing I will say is that when you are setting up your pump and choosing the vacuum intensity, it can go, mine goes I think up to 15. And I usually hover around a 10 or 11 for the actual pumping. You can do the let down feature and then move over to the pump. The intensity of the suction. Yes, the idea is that the more suction, the more success, but you do not want to get it to the point of pain. So if you are experiencing pain while pumping, back off the vacuum, take it down a level, 2 levels, 3 levels, whatever it is, to where you are still drawing milk, but you're not in pain, because pain is going to slow down the milk coming out of the pump, okay? So find that level that works for you, and I think those 3 things, the nipple butter, the size of your flange, and the intensity of your suction can, in combination, create a non-painful pumping experience. Okay, the next question. What is the correct way to store milk pumped over the course of the day? Can we mix them all together? Of course, yes, I will say yes. Okay, the correct way to store your milk. So again, in part 1, I showed you how you can pump into a container, take that container home with you, or you can pump straight into a bag. It's all going to depend on what you want to do with that milk. If you are at home and you're exclusively pumping, well then the milk that you pump might be going directly into baby's bottle. So great, pump directly into the bottle, pump into one of these and pour it into a bottle. And they do make attachments. I have an attachment that will pump straight into the bag, but they do make attachments for your specific bottles that you could pump straight into, put the lid on, feed your baby. If you are going to take that milk home, freeze it, then I would say get one of those insulated bags. Again, all these parts are described in part 1, but you can put it in a container, in an insulated bag that does have one of those ice packs. There is an ice pack in there. Then take it home, transfer it into one of these bags that you lay flat in the freezer and store up to like 9 months in your freezer. That's another question I will get to. But when it comes to daily, just decide what you're going to do with it. Is it going to go straight into the fridge? Maybe you want it in one of these. If it's going to go in the freezer, pour it into one of these. If it's going directly into baby, then maybe look for the attachment that goes straight into the bottle. Or just put it in one of these and pour that into the bottle. And when it comes to mixing them together, especially on a daily, when it comes to daily milk, absolutely. If I'm, leaking throughout the day and say I collect a little bit of milk, I'll pour that into some stored milk I have in the fridge. I just think about like your baby is gonna get milk that whether you're nursing or pumping in the morning, the afternoon, the night, they're still getting that milk. So you can mix the same day together and then store it accordingly. There have even been times, and this is personal preference, that I will take thawed milk, which does not taste as good. If you've tasted your own breast milk, which I highly recommend, fresh milk is sweet. It is absolutely like that scene from Friends where they say that it tastes like cantaloupe juice. When I heard that as an adult, I thought, oh my gosh, exactly. That's exactly it. Fresh milk is tasty. Reheated milk, not so much. There are proteins in the milk that once they get frozen and reheated, become like metallic, kind of bitter. Some babies don't care. My son never cared. Some babies won't take it at all, completely refuse. Elena's kind of somewhere in the middle right now where you can't tell if, like, she'll make a face, but sometimes she'll take it and sometimes she'll refuse it. So one of the ways that I've come around that is to take some of my fresh, sweeter milk, mix it in with the reheated milk so that it cuts that metallic taste of it. But again, if you're not comfortable doing that, then don't. But I found that it works and then I'm not wasting precious milk. So the next question, what temperature should your milk stay at? Okay, if you have freshly expressed milk, it can stay at about 77 degrees Fahrenheit, so 25, 26 Celsius, up to 4 hours. It can just sit right there on the counter. You can use it. If baby's feeding every 3 hours, you don't have to worry about the milk. It has 4 hours to sit there after you've pumped it and you can feed baby. Which again might help, if you don't have to reheat it, then you have a less chance of getting that metallic taste. If you want to refrigerate your milk, maybe then plan to use it within 4 days. Frozen, it can be in the freezer up to 6 to 9 months, and a deep freezer up to 12 months. And then if you're moving from freezer to fridge, some recommendations are 24 hours. I will say that I treat the frozen milk, especially if you've frozen it immediately after pumping, it hasn't sat out for the 4 hours and then, I'm not going to use that, I'll freeze it. But if you've immediately gone to freezer, I will put that in the fridge up to the 3, maybe 4 days. And I haven't had an issue with it. Was the same way with my first. I kind of treat it like fresh milk because it was, immediately frozen. There's an abundance of caution because the studies haven't really been done and because Everybody's bacteria levels are different, production is different, babies' bacteria levels are different. It would be really hard to come up with something concrete. So I think the advice that's out there is stricter than probably necessary. If you have a healthy, non-immunocompromised child, then I think there's more wiggle room with the milk. But you can smell it, you can taste it, and I have tasted milk of mine that has gone bad. You'll know. You'll know. So just use your own judgment. Do what makes you comfortable. Stick too close to the guidelines, but understand there is a little wiggle room when you have a healthy baby, and do the smell and taste test. Okay. Let's make sure I answered all those questions. Oh, which pump did I find the most useful? So I have only used the Spectra S2 and my hand pump and my Haka, but I have not used any other electric breast pump. I have not used a hands-free pump. I know that they are very popular right now. I've seen a number of influencers use them. I've also seen those same influencers develop mastitis. I don't know if there's a link between a hands-free pump and getting mastitis, but I don't know if they can draw the same amount of power as an electric pump that's plugged into the wall. And my thought there is that the more powerful, the more the success you have emptying the breast, the less likely you are to have a clogged duct. So I stick with this pump. It has been so good to me. I have tried to manually express after pumping because that can be recommended, and I get nothing. I get drops. This pump really does an insanely good job at emptying. So I have, knock on wood, yet to have a case of mastitis. I can't believe I'm even saying that out loud because, you know, I don't want to jinx it, but there it is. So I think that the electric pump, there's just no reason for me to change. But if you want to try hands-free, I mean, it sounds amazing. Since the baby is being fed most of the time, when can we pump to store some extra milk to use it for an emergency purpose? All right, I love this question. If you watched my video about what was in my hospital bag, I make a reference to the fact that I wasn't even sure I would do any pumping. I'm staying at home with this baby. I worked the first 9 months with my first child. I was like, why would I really need to pump? And then within a week, 1 week of postpartum, I was at an appointment at a government office. So I was in a queue that just would not move. And I realized I'm about to miss feeding my baby. And we didn't have anything at home. We didn't have formula at home. So I had to get up from the appointment, lose my spot, go home because I was getting so much anxiety about missing the chance to feed her. And I realized, all right, I've got to start somewhere. So my recommendation, especially if you're in those first 40 days of postpartum where you're likely to have an oversupply, take advantage of that. I would come home and feed and pump 4 to 6 ounces after feeding Elena. So that's when I would recommend doing it. Feed baby so you know she's full and satisfied, and then you have 3 hours to make more milk for her, and just do a 15 to 20, up to 30 if you wanted, minute pump. However many letdowns you're having, just roll with it. And build up that supply early on. Now, if you're already past that point, I still recommend feed baby and then just do a 15-minute pump, and maybe you get half an ounce, maybe you get more, but do that consistently throughout the day, and then choose one time that baby, hopefully at this point, if you're past that, 4th trimester, then baby is sleeping maybe 6 hours, maybe 8 hours, maybe who knows how many hours, then choose a time maybe right after baby's gone to bed to do a power pump. And a power pump is a 1 hour block of time. You do a 20-minute pump, you wait for 10 minutes. You do a 10-minute pump, you wait for 10 minutes, you do a 10-minute pump, and then you're done. And 1, that will help boost your supply, and 2, that should help get you some storage. Now, the caveat to that is the more you pump, the more you produce. So you could potentially get yourself into a position where you're needing to pump because you've pumped. So I would recommend only doing that for a short amount of time, or not doing it every night unless you really are trying to boost that supply. But otherwise you could be in a position of oversupply where it becomes unmanageable and you're just leaking milk all the time and you can't leave the house because you're leaking everywhere and you're uncomfortable and your boobs get engorged and you're at an increased risk for mastitis because you can't empty your boobs as much as you need to. You don't want to go there, because just as much as it's stressful to not have enough milk, I know moms that talk about how stressful it is to have too much milk. So try to keep a balance there. But yes, I would just say throw in a random pumping session throughout the day if you have a block of time where you know you'll have enough time to make enough milk for a baby to eat. They say that you really only need like an hour. So like really you could wait an hour after pumping or after feeding, pump, and then still have 2 hours to make milk for the next feed. So as long as your supply is keeping up with baby, like no problem. 1 extra pumping session a day and you should have a store for those times that you go to the doctor, want to get your nails done, want to go out to brunch or go have a drink, and then have the babysitter come over and do a bottle feed, whatever you need. So some people do choose also, if you are making enough on one side to nurse baby and pump the other side, you can do those at the same time. If you are needing both sides to fill baby, that doesn't really work, but it is an option if you're just feeding on one side throughout, each feed. Okay, how long can we keep the pumped milk at room temperature? I already discussed that. I'm not sure I completely understand the question. How to use the refrigerated milk in freezer milk. So I'm thinking that like you want to just know if you can combine the two, which I did talk about earlier, and I absolutely have. So if you take a pack out of the freezer, you can just put it in some cold water, kind of like you would thaw shrimp or something. It will actually thaw really quickly, and then you can mix it with your fresh milk, your refrigerated milk, warm it in the warmer. If you don't have a bottle warmer, just microwave some water, not the bottle, but just the water, for about 2 minutes, and then put the bottle in, and within about 5 minutes, it should be great temperature. Swirl it around to make sure you don't have any like hot pockets in the milk. Always test the temperature of the milk before you give it to baby. And again, you can mix the fridge milk with the freezer milk, the fresh milk with the fridge milk with the freezer milk, whatever you need to do. As long as the milk's been kept at the proper temperature, the proper amount of time, I wouldn't feel bad about mixing them together. And the very last question, how long are you supposed to pump during each session? And that is a toss-up. The general consensus is that 15 minutes is like a solid pumping session. Anything less than that, you potentially are missing out on another letdown. So usually within about 15 minutes, I've had 2 letdowns. I don't know how normal that is compared to other moms, but I think that might be the logic behind the 15 minutes is to see if you're gonna have that second letdown. When I was at work, I stuck those suckers on and the thing will time out, at least on the Spectra S2, at 30 minutes. And I would just leave that thing on, I'd forget about it, and I would be doing my work, it would go the 30 minutes, and I just let it be. But if all you have is 5 minutes, then do 5 minutes. Do a 5-minute pump after every feed. It's going to be better than nothing, but if you can get 15 minutes, do 15 minutes. And if you can do a power pump because you really want to boost that supply, do the power pump. When I've needed to do that, I put Elena down, I come downstairs, I've already fed her, I really don't have much, but I'm just telling my body like, let's do this. So anytime you pump, take a break, then pump again, it's like telling your body, okay, baby ate, but baby's still hungry. Baby ate, baby's still hungry. And the idea is that if you do that just like 2 or 3 nights in a row, you will boost the supply. So that is all my questions. I hope that this was informative, and if it spurred any other questions, or you feel differently about something, or you have your own advice to give moms, definitely comment below. Like, let's make this an open community. I want moms to empower each other, share advice. It's not cookie cutter. Parenting isn't cookie cutter. Pregnancy isn't cookie cutter. Postpartum isn't cookie cutter. We all might have things that we do slightly differently, and what works for me might not work for somebody else, but will work for their friend, and what she does might work for somebody else. And the more we can just talk about our experiences and share success stories, or maybe like unsuccessful attempts at things, we're learning and we're sharing, and it's awesome. So I just think we can be such an amazing resource for each other. That's my goal, to be a resource for even just one other mom out there. And I just really hope that you enjoyed this. And if you did, like, subscribe. That's how that's how I know that I'm providing useful information, and that drives me to make even more videos. So if you have any other ideas for me, shoot them below. Reach me on Instagram at Wanderlands. I'm also on Facebook. I'm everywhere. So, all right, thank you, and bye.